The School of Athens is one of the most celebrated masterpieces in the history of art. At first glance, it appears to be a grand gathering of the greatest philosophers of the ancient world, frozen together inside a magnificent Renaissance palace. Every figure seems carefully placed, every gesture seems intentional, and every detail feels perfectly planned. But hidden among these famous thinkers is a man who was never meant to be there. If you look closely at the lonely figure sitting on the staircase, you'll notice something unusual. Unlike everyone around him, he isn't speaking, debating, or teaching. He sits alone, lost in thought, quietly writing to himself while the world carries on around him. For centuries, he was simply accepted as another ancient philosopher. Then historians made a remarkable discovery. Raphael's original full-size design for this fresco still survives, and that mysterious man is nowhere to be found. The staircase was completely empty. He wasn't part of Raphael's original vision at all. He was added only after the painting was almost finished. That raises an extraordinary question. Why would an artist risk changing one of the greatest works of his career at the very last moment? And why would Raphael secretly hide the face of his greatest rival inside one of history's most famous paintings? The answer reveals a fascinating story of competition, admiration, and one of the greatest artistic tributes ever painted. The story begins in 1508 when a 25-year-old Raphael arrived in Rome. Pope Julius II had ambitious plans for the Vatican. He wanted his private apartments transformed into a celebration of human knowledge, faith, and the ideals of the Renaissance. Raphael was given the responsibility of decorating several rooms inside the Vatican Palace. Today, these rooms are known as the Raphael rooms, each dedicated to a different branch of learning. One represented theology, another law, another poetry, while the largest wall in the room of philosophy became home to what we now call the School of Athens. Despite its famous name, this isn't a real school. Instead, Raphael imagined an impossible meeting of history's greatest minds. Philosophers who had lived hundreds of years apart suddenly stand together beneath one enormous classical building. Time disappears, allowing the greatest thinkers of antiquity to share the same space. At the very center of the fresco stand the two men who define Western philosophy, Plato and Aristotle. Raphael doesn't simply paint them standing side by side. Their body language tells the entire story. Plato points upward toward the heavens, suggesting that ultimate truth exists beyond the physical world. According to him, reality is found in eternal ideas that never change. Aristotle, standing beside him, gestures toward the earth. His philosophy argues the opposite, that knowledge begins by observing nature and understanding the world through experience. Two simple hand movements summarize centuries of philosophical debate. Raphael strengthens this contrast even further through the books they carry. Plato holds the Timaeus, a dialogue exploring the nature of the universe, while Aristotle carries the Nicomachean Ethics, a work focused on virtue and practical human life. The painting contains nearly 60 figures, yet it never feels crowded. Raphael arranges every philosopher into carefully balanced groups, allowing the viewer's eyes to move naturally across the composition. Mathematics, astronomy, logic, music, ethics, and philosophy all come together in one perfectly organized scene. Near the lower left corner sits Pythagoras, surrounded by students as he records mathematical theories. Looking over his shoulder is the great Arab philosopher Averroes, symbolizing how ancient knowledge survived through the Islamic world before returning to Europe. Higher up stands Socrates, calmly counting his arguments on his fingers while explaining his ideas to a group of attentive listeners. Nearby, many scholars believe the armored figure represents Alexander the Great, one of history's greatest military leaders. Lying comfortably across the marble steps is Diogenes, completely unconcerned with the activity around him. His relaxed posture reflects his philosophy of rejecting wealth, power, and social status in pursuit of absolute freedom. Every character contributes something meaningful to the composition. But Raphael wasn't trying to recreate history with perfect accuracy. Instead, he quietly inserted people from his own world into this gathering of ancient philosophers. The most obvious example is Plato. His face unmistakably resembles Leonardo da Vinci. The flowing beard, thoughtful expression, and aged features closely match portraits of the great Renaissance genius. It was Raphael's way of honoring a man whose curiosity stretched across science, engineering, mathematics, and art, qualities that perfectly reflected Plato's endless search for higher truth. Another figure B. Believed to portray a real contemporary is Euclid, the mathematician bending over a geometric diagram with a compass. His features closely resemble Donato Bramante, the brilliant architect responsible for designing the new St. Peter's Basilica and one of the men who introduced Raphael to Rome's artistic circles. Raphael even painted himself into the masterpiece. On the far right side stands a young man wearing a black beret, quietly looking straight toward the viewer. Unlike every other figure, he breaks the illusion by making direct eye contact with us, almost inviting us to step inside this remarkable gathering of history's greatest minds. Yet among all these hidden portraits, one figure remains unlike any other. A lonely philosopher sits on the staircase with his head resting on one hand, completely separated from everyone around him. His name is Heraclitus, and his presence inside the School of Athens may be the greatest secret Raphael ever painted. For centuries, Heraclitus was simply considered another philosopher among the many figures inside the School of Athens. But modern research revealed something extraordinary. He wasn't part of Raphael's original design. Raphael's surviving preparatory cartoon, the enormous full-scale drawing used to plan the fresco, shows the staircase completely empty. The mysterious philosopher simply doesn't exist. This wasn't a forgotten sketch or a damaged section. The figure had never been planned in the first place. So how do we know he was added later? The answer lies in the very technique Raphael used to paint. Unlike painting on canvas, a fresco is created directly onto wet plaster. Each day, the artist can only paint as much as the fresh plaster allows before it dries. Every day's work leaves behind nearly invisible seams that remain detectable even centuries later. When conservators carefully examine the School of Athens, they notice something unusual. The plaster surrounding Heraclitus belongs to a completely separate working section from the rest of the staircase. In other words, Raphael had already finished that area before making a dramatic decision. He cut away part of the completed plaster, applied a fresh layer, and painted an entirely new figure into the composition. It was a bold move. Artists almost never altered finished frescoes because doing so meant risking damage to weeks of painstaking work. Yet Raphael believed this addition was important enough to take that risk. But what changed his mind? The answer was waiting only a few rooms away. While Raphael was decorating the Vatican, another artist was working in almost complete secrecy. His name was Michelangelo. Just beyond the walls of Raphael's studio, Michelangelo was painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, an undertaking so ambitious that few people had been allowed to see it before its official unveiling. The relationship between the two artists was anything but friendly. Michelangelo viewed the younger Raphael with suspicion, believing he was gaining too much attention from the Pope. Raphael, meanwhile, deeply admired Michelangelo's extraordinary talent while also competing against him for artistic greatness. According to the most widely accepted historical account, Donato Bramante secretly arranged for Raphael to enter the Sistine Chapel while Michelangelo was away. Whether every detail of that story is true remains debated, but one fact is undeniable. At some point before completing the School of Athens, Raphael saw Michelangelo's revolutionary sailing. The experience transformed him. The muscular figures, dramatic poses, and overwhelming emotional power were unlike anything Europe had ever seen. Raphael immediately recognized that he was witnessing a masterpiece that would forever change the direction of art. Instead of ignoring his rival's achievement, he chose to honor it. He returned to his nearly completed fresco and added one final figure: Heraclitus. But this wasn't just another philosopher. It was Michelangelo in disguise. The resemblance becomes impossible to ignore once you know where to look. The broad nose, powerful jawline, deep-set eyes, and thoughtful expression closely resemble known portraits of Michelangelo. Even the posture feels deeply personal. While everyone else exchanges ideas in lively conversation, Heraclitus remains completely alone, absorbed in his own thoughts. That perfectly matched Michelangelo's reputation. Contemporary writers often described him as intensely private, stubborn, and happiest when working in complete isolation. He avoided courtly life whenever possible and devoted nearly every waking hour to his art. Raphael even hinted at Michelangelo's profession through his clothing. Rather than dressing Heraclitus in elegant classical robes, he gave him heavy boots and practical garments resembling those worn by Tuscan stone workers. Michelangelo had trained first as a sculptor, and many accounts claim he worked with such relentless dedication that he often kept wearing his boots for days at a time. The symbolism couldn't have been more fitting. Raphael wasn't simply painting Michelangelo's face. He was painting his personality. Even more fascinating evidence emerged centuries later from an unexpected source: medicine. In 2016, a team of Italian physicians examined historical portraits of Michelangelo while studying the illnesses that affected him during his later years. Their conclusion was that the Renaissance master most likely suffered from severe osteoarthritis, a degenerative disease that gradually deformed the joints of his hands and feet. Michelangelo himself frequently complained of intense pain in his letters, although he believed the condition was gout. Now return to Heraclitus. His feet appear unusually large beneath his boots, with noticeable swelling that some researchers believe Raphael intentionally included after carefully observing Michelangelo in real life. By itself, this detail cannot prove the identification. But when combined with the altered plaster, the surviving preparatory drawing, the striking facial resemblance, the clothing, and the historical timing, the evidence becomes remarkably persuasive. Raphael wasn't mocking his greatest rival. He was paying tribute to him. Instead of placing Michelangelo among painters, Raphael elevated him into the company of history's greatest philosophers, as though his genius belonged not only to art, but to humanity's greatest intellectual minds. That single decision transformed the school of Athens forever. What appears to be a perfect vision of the ancient world is actually filled with hidden messages from the Renaissance itself. Behind every carefully arranged figure lies another story waiting to be discovered. And perhaps that is why, more than 500 years later, Raphael's masterpiece continues to reward those willing to look just a little closer. Because sometimes the greatest secret in a painting isn't what the artist originally created. It's the one he decided to add at the very end.